Yeah, they think RV. This is
Yeah.
not an RV. It's not on wheels. If it's post 1977, there's probably no tongue on the front in order to hook it up to a transport unit. They're
Hmm.
on factory spec. I think they're called stilts. That they end up removing the axles, they take the tires, and they set them at that lot really with a long-term mindset. These parks
Hmm.
themselves are the ones that primarily brought them in the 70s. And if you think on an institutional play to own the park, you want that home there as long as you can keep
Yeah.
it there, at the end of the day, because that's your business
So,
model.
so I
Hmm.
think Nathan's onto something because I think, I look back, my grandmother lived in a trailer, metal sides, metal roof, and it just didn't look like a home. It looked like an inexpensive, cheap thing. And you walk inside of it, and everything was kind of built cheaply. Yeah.
100%.
That's the old homes, right? This is the pre 1977. This is back, yeah. I mean, I was in the 80s going to visit her, right? So I think that what you're saying is before that, they were built differently and they're structured differently, and they were really built for a motor vehicle way of living versus, I mean, she never towed it, it never moved, but that
Sure.
was what's in my image of a mobile home is this, skirted RV.
Yeah,
Hmm.
no, and it's a big negative connotation, mobile homes. They're travesty of the Netflix series that came out, Trailer Park Boys. That just paints a really bad picture, I think, of this environment. And really, here in Arizona, 10% of homes in Arizona are mobile homes and manufactured housing. That's a lot. That's a big market.
Yeah.
I do maybe 75 homes a year. We're not
Wow.
even scratching the market. And those homes that were pre 70s are now coming due. They just went through their first 40-year life cycle. And Dave, your grandmother's moving out next week or whatever,
Yeah.
and transitioning in life cycle. Now the park's taking back that unit that has metal siding and all of that. That's an opportunity. Why? Because it fits on an acquisition to buy that property, rehab it, and match a price point under what the new homes are going for replacement cost. So, like a new home in a quality community could go for $175,000. Well, if I can buy that mobile home at 5 to 10 grand and put 50,000 into it, and we did new electrical, plumbing, siding,
Full works. Yeah.
paint, everything, and it's literally almost like we're manufacturing a new home, not literally, but
Yeah.
it
Guts.
fits that model. Those homes came through the life cycle. They were all brought here in the 70s. These parks don't know
Hmm.
what to do with them. They're like, hey man, this knight in shining armor comes through and wants to take on the potential risk of buying that property, rehabbing it up to quality, getting a qualified client, and then on the back end, having a better exit strategy potentially of originating a seller carry note if you can't find a cash buyer, and you get them fully qualified. It opens up a more concrete idea of like pricing, where you're at in the market, because if we can match a seller carry note on that home with market rent, the advantages are that individual gets pride of ownership. On the investment side, they can't go anywhere for cheaper. They
Hmm.
were possibly crying at closing because they were left out of home ownership. They've been
Yeah.
told for 10 years they don't qualify. On residential property, there's a scarcity in financing on manufactured housing. There's
Sure.
not all that many options. I think I saw
So
Joe
let's
Biden.
I
Yeah, go
just
ahead,
wanted to
Dave.
clarify. So you get this old 1960 trailer, right? Are you kind of tongue off? Are you detitling it? Are you making it a fixed with foundation? Are you going that severe? Or where are you? What is the changeover from what we see as a trailer to being a home, right?
Sure.
Do you put a foundation on? Do you cut the tongue off? Do you make it so that it never can be put back together and pulled out again?
Yeah, so in technicalities, it could move. It could move. but the financial requirement in order to move that property, set it up on another lot, get permits and restore the lot to its original condition, you're talking about a $50,000 play on a
Whoa.
home that they may have paid 100 for. They're like, man, unless they
Yeah.
have a pre-developed lot that they bought and already developed and has city utilities and things of that nature, it's
I think
non-financially advantageous.
I think what me and Nathan see is them hooking up a F-150 to it, pulling it down the street,
Yeah.
and my asset's gone, right?
Sure. That
Um,
couldn't happen. And
yes.
why can that not happen? Because there's no tongue on the property. These properties don't have a hitch, a trailer hitch or anything like that. You'd have to go buy the MVD required axles and the tires, find a transporter. You can't just move these with the F-150. You could maybe try, but it's not going to get off the lot.
Gotcha.
But yeah,
So
it's
then,
really, go ahead.
so my other question then is like, what's the difference then between a manufactured home and a regular residential home?
Absolutely. Yeah. So a mobile home could be quote unquote permanently affixed to a lot, which
Mhm.
Dave mentioned, detitling and creating that mobile home and lot into one. So now that's a
Okay.
real property, residential real estate treated as such. These are titled through the Department of Transportation. So it is
Mhm.
technically like a car title, but there is a secured title on that specific unit. And that's where the differentiation lies, right? You have leased land, mobile homes, that's considered technically personal property. And then you have, like Dave mentioned, detitled mobile homes that are permanently affixed to the lot. They got tie downs and things of that nature. The
Yeah.
big difference I see with the two of those products in my market here in Arizona is you're talking about a $250,000 purchase or
Mhm.
a 50 to 100. So it's
Mhm.
definitely a different buyer financial requirement,
Mhm.
financing, and things of that nature. So those are just the differentiations between those two products.
So I
All
think we
right.
had a question on here is that, on the chat, and I definitely, Cindy, I'll get you in a minute, was, that you can write into a promissory note that it can't be moved. I don't think our fear
Correct.
is that, right? Our fear is if they already defaulted on us and trying to get out of town with our asset, that's where our fear is, right? So if they're pulling away, we assume they already stopped paying, making payments,
Sure.
right? So we're worried about our scenario of fear is we have Mr. Smith and Mrs. Smith who are paying us great, and then they stop paying us. When
Sure.
they
Mhm.
stopped paying us, they didn't hook this thing up to some kind of truck, flatbed, whatever, and pull it out. And now we go to foreclose on it, and we have nothing to foreclose on.
Or yeah, or
Or
it's in Tahiti, afraid, hopefully not.
yeah.
That is go ahead, Nathan. Sorry to cut you off
No,
there.
go ahead. I want to hear what you got to say that, and then I'll add to my my experience.
Yeah, so first off, the individual that came in and bought that home originally from us, maybe on a note, right? They sign also a lot lease with where that home is at in location.
Mhm.
Contractually within their documents as well as ours, it requires them to, one, let them know of their intentions of either moving that property or things of that nature, as well as they're contractually required to return the lot to its pre-existing condition, which means you have to grate that lot. You have to remove the two big cement pads. On top of that, like I mentioned previously, the financial requirement in order to do that, the planning, the permits, the communication with a transporter, because you have to have a licensed transporter. The transporters can go talk to the park, make sure all of those ducks in a row if that were ever to happen. But they are contractually required to fulfill those requirements. Why do I bring that up? Because if an individual is going behind on their payments, technically in a mindset, they do not really have any money to relocate that property.
True.
Why would they be going behind on the note and then have an
Mhm.
extra 50,000 out of nowhere, to go
Good
move
point.
the home? It just
Good point.
doesn't so
Yeah.
much make sense.
The boogeyman in the closet is not really there.
Anything
Yeah.
could happen, right? There's an element of risk in every
Yeah,
investment strategy, but it's important to see the dynamics of financial requirements, contractual agreements of what people are responsible for if that were to happen, as well as a lot of these people are moving into really this is their either first or last place to live majority of the time
sure.
where they've owned this property, whether it be 55 and older or a new family. Well, the new family wanted a solid place to live, where they wanted to live at. They may have school pickup in that community. And the 55 and older individual wanted to retire affordably, in that area. They're not just buying that home to buy the home. They wanted to live there off those cross streets. Their daughter lives down the street or whatever that may be. Those are a lot of
Yeah.
positive factors to reinforce the fact that that home and that tenant, that seller carry owner wants to be off that in that area and things of that nature.
Go ahead, Nathan. Go ahead and ask your question because I have a follow-up as well regarding some numbers.
Yeah. So like I say, I bought 2 mobile home notes in my career here over the last 15 years. And on the first one, it was non-performing. This was back when everything was non-performing. And so I went to go and foreclose, and then it was not affixed to the property. So I was foreclosing on personal property, and it was a completely different process, and it was a little bit funky. The second time that I bought the note, I thought I had done all my homework. I'm like, okay, so it's fixed, everything's cool, everything's good. It was in Nevada, and then I came to find out that in Nevada, there's actually 2 steps to the process, and they'd only done the first step, so it still hadn't been affixed. So
Yeah.
with that, I'm like, you know what? I don't know this well enough. I don't understand it, so I'm out. So can you walk us through, if it's still technically a mobile home, if it has not been detitled, if it has not been affixed to the land, what does that look like in case of default? How is that remedied?
Yeah, so we've come across a great attorney here in Arizona that we've put on retainer, and he kind of showed us the ropes, over the past 5 years. So ultimately, on top of that, we have some other previous park management that works with us, so we know exactly what to do, what processes, etc. But again, it is a different process. It's a car title. This is not real property. You're not going to the residential courts to get a foreclosure. Entirely different process. It being leased land, we go through a formal eviction processes and then a affidavit of repossession. So we repossess that property after they go through an eviction processes of non-payment, depending on the terms laid out in your document. So obviously, on the note or contract or whatever was secured, with the lien, it details what the time requirements are to issue that repossession and formal eviction, things of that nature. Communities themselves have other binding agreements within their lease. So if they go non-performing with the park on either side, either our note that they stop paying or the community ends up getting stop payment, that within like 40 days, the community will have them out and talk to whoever's on title. So either the lien holder or
Wow.
who originally owned that property. They did it all for us, technically. Uh,
Mhm.
when we start getting either late payments or non-payment, we're doing the best of our ability to try and work it out. And
Sure.
really, do we want to take the property back? We really don't, right? No one wants to do that.
No.
We did it for a performing note. We put Jenny Mae in her house. She
Yep.
qualified for that note. We
Yeah,
want
of
her to
So
have her
let's
home.
talk some numbers here, right?
course.
What's the term of these notes? What is typically a down payment percentage of the term of the overall purchase, and what rate of interest are you doing?